Will Mauritania be the first African country to host a NATO military base? Why is China building a naval base in Equatorial Guinea? When people say there is a scramble for Africa and its resources, these are part of it. Let's start with Mauritania and NATO relationship. It all started way back in 1995 when Mauritania joined NATO's Mediterranean Dialogue Partnership Forum. From then, the relationship grew tremendously, and in 2013 they joined NATO's Defense Education Enhancement Program. In 2022, Mauritania's President Mohamed Ghazouani was invited to NATO's summit in Madrid, where the allied heads of state and government approved a defense security capacity building package for Mauritania. So it's a rosy partnership between Mauritania and NATO. And who made it possible? France, of course. Mauritania is a francophone country and their former colony. France also maintains a military base in Mauritania. They used to have one in neighboring Mali until recently when the Malian generals expelled them. They were forced to withdraw their troops after fighting insurgents in the country for nearly 10 years. They moved some of their equipment to Niger, and now they are facing the same expulsion in Niger. After they were expelled in Mali, the Malians brought in the Russian private security outfit, the Wagner Group. It's not as if the situation has changed since the arrival of the Wagner Group. There are still security challenges even in central Mali, but the difference is the relationship between the Malians and Russians, unlike the one they had with France. It can be seen here with all the new equipment that the Russians are selling and even giving them for free. All the combat helicopters, all the fighter jets, basically anything they want. In other words, the Malians feel more at home with the Russians. When they negotiate for procurement, they feel like they are talking to equals. They don't feel like they are being lauded over to what kind of equipment they can sell to them, or you can't use this. You need extensive training for this, therefore, no way you can't approach this. They have a leeway when they deal with the Russians. Now, France feels threatened by the Russians. They feel they are taking over their former domain. So, in their interest, they feel they can't fight back. They can't fight alone. That's why they might be dreaming and planning to bring in NATO to help them checkmate the perceived Russian domination of their former colony. All this is happening in another man's country and another man's continent, not even their own. So this is the real scramble. The French economy benefits hugely from the cheap natural resources they mine and extract from West Africa. And having lost their influence in Burkina Faso, Mali, and hopefully Niger will follow next, not to talk of Guinea and other countries, they have every reason to be worried. French companies operate many ports in West Africa, from Cotonou Port to Lomé Port, Abidjan Port, many others. They make billions of euros per annum in all these port operations. Do you know how much they pay in taxes in France? So they are well aware what they stand to lose if all their influence and benefits are cut off from West Africa for good. At the time China built their first foreign naval base in Djibouti, it could be said that it was necessary because of happenings at the Horn of Africa at the time. It was a nightmare for many shipping containers and tanker vessels sailing the area. At the time, there were many issues of sea piracy, all sorts of many issues. So the presence of the Chinese Navy and other countries that have naval ports in Djibouti have put the situation under control. So one won't be wrong in saying that the aims and objectives of the Chinese naval base in Djibouti are clear and they largely achieve them. What could be their aims and objectives in the Gulf of Guinea? Why is China building a naval base 500 kilometers south of Port Harcourt? Yes, Equatorial Guinea is that close to Nigeria. Why is China on our backyard? A few years ago, the Gulf of Guinea experienced a lot of security challenges. There were instances of piracy, oil theft, where they hijack crude oil vessels and transfer their cargo to other ships on the high sea. to the extent that the International Maritime Bureau blacklisted Nigeria and other Gulf of Guinea countries. But all that changed since the Nigerian Navy launched the Falcon Eye. You can learn more about the Deep Blue project by watching this video. Yes, the Gulf of Guinea used to be classified as the most dangerous for shipping vessels in the world, but all that has changed. The Nigerian Navy took the fight to the pirates and they had to flee. So if insecurity and piracy have been solved by the Nigerian Navy in the Gulf of Guinea, why is China building a naval base in Equatorial Guinea? Why will they commit resources to build a naval base where their servicemen will be idle most of the time? Maybe it's just a naval base by name only. Maybe it's just for spying. Maybe they are coming to support Chinese massive trawlers. Whatever it is they are doing, the Chinese will never allow anyone to build a naval base 500 kilometers to their shores. They will never allow it. Look at what they are doing in the South China Sea. Because the sea has China in the name, they think they own everything. How? They think they can intimidate their way into owning everything found in the South China Sea. Anyway, whatever they are doing, even the United States is taking notice. They said that it is a national security threat to the United States. Despite being on the other side of the Atlantic, they still feel it's a national security threat. What will Nigeria do in this situation? The naval base will be 500 kilometers off our shores. What is Nigeria going to do? Anyway, all these foreign countries and powers coming to Africa to either mine resources or install naval bases and military bases is not their fault alone. African leaders also share the blame. Just because of the peanuts these guys give them, they just sign a lease. Hey, take this land, build a military base, do whatever you like. That's very unpatriotic. Many countries in Europe don't even have a quarter of the natural resources that are found in many African countries, but they are still able to manage the little resources that they have. The revenue that they generate in their country annually, they are able to utilize it judiciously. Many of them still offer free education, free health services. These can be found in many African countries. So what are we doing with all the revenue? What are we doing with all the resources? First of all, many African leaders are bad managers. The way they throw away money on frivolities, the way they ride on long convoys, the way they celebrate and party with people's money, they are highly corrupt that they will sign away the future of their country for peanuts. Most of them have borrowed money to the extent that the next generation will not even finish the repayment of these loans. So what is going on in Africa? We need to start by cutting the cost of governance. In most of the countries where the military took over and are trying to form a transition government to get back to democracy, they need to think hard about the type of democracy they want to practice. Because the presidential system of governance is actually very expensive. That's what the French practices. They need to seriously consider parliamentary system of governance. It's actually very simple and economical to run. Nigeria practiced this system in the 60s immediately after independence. But in 1979, we changed over to the American presidential system. This American presidential system is very expensive to run. They waste billions of naira every year just for the current expenditure for the executive branch. This is not talking about salaries. Salaries are different. We are talking about all the allowances. Each minister will have a retinue of aides, his own convoy. They just waste money. Money that will be put in productive areas that can actually change the fortunes of the people, but they just waste them as if it's their own. That's why African countries will continue needing help. They will continue needing help from donor agencies who will come and impose their conditions on them. They cannot manage the little revenue that they earn and judiciously spend them. They need to invest more in education so that their people will actually do the jobs they invite foreigners to do. That way you won't be needing help from any foreigner. Not that foreigners are not good or they are not people, but you get more impact when you invest on your people. Your people won't leave your country for another country, but foreigners will always go back to their country. This will, in essence, reduce the reliance on foreigners because China actually did it when they were developing. They made sure they tried to manufacture many things locally. They will buy one sample from abroad and try and fabricate them, try and copy and see how it works. This is what we should be doing in Africa so that we will reduce the overdependence on foreigners. It is not too difficult to extract resources from the ground. It's mining. People can learn all this by improving their education and skills. There's no reason an African leader should steal their people's money and launder it to Europe or America. That's why they don't take you seriously. They know you value money more than patriotism. That's why they bring that money and offer you. You sell land to them, lease this place to them, take this naval base, take this, take that. They don't take you seriously. Why not try in their country? Go to China, go to America and say, please, we want to build a naval base or want to build a military base, and understand how they will respond to you. So these are the problems. If foreigners don't have people who connive with them in Africa, they won't have the audacity to be asking for military bases, naval bases, even management of ports and other infrastructure. So that's the basic problem. African leaders should understand leadership. Leadership is meant to solve problems, to better the lives of the people, not to siphon money or sign away your country to a foreign country, not to be a security threat to your own country. They need to invest more in education so that their people will learn all these skills and be able to solve the problems locally instead of depending on foreigners to build infrastructure and provide basic services. Thanks for watching.